This video begins with screams, blood, a surge of undead, and people fleeing everywhere. An explosion echoes amidst the conflict. Two warriors clash their weapons. The human gathers strength and delivers a heavy attack. This is blocked and countered by his enemy, causing another blast. He plunges his sword into the ground. Eos, the strongest swordsman of the Empire, praises his rival's strength, the Death Knight. But he did not come out unscathed. He received damage to his armor and loses his helmet. The knight holds his face in pain and begins to shake strangely until he calms down. This one is surprised. What was that? He finally got it, he wonders. Everything is in flames. How good it feels, exclaims the skeleton. I finally achieved what I had sought for so long, to destroy the Empire with my own hands. His revenge was a complete success. This is Dorgo, Lord of Hell. Hogwarts Adele, the very emperor of the Helios Empire, cries and curses Dorgo for massacring his people, being taken as a joke. For him, being cursed is like receiving a compliment. Dorgo asks if he's finished complaining, since it was time to begin the coronation once and for all. It is his reward for unifying the entire continent. I should be acclaimed as the sole emperor. Howard can do nothing but accept the situation. They just lost. The Lord of Hell goes to his cards of triumph, the demon kings and infernal beasts. He orders them to bring the imperial crown. From among them emerges the knight from the beginning, holding the crown. Dorgo especially congratulates him, his most loyal knight who played the main role in the battle. What reward do you wish to receive? He asks him. The knight remains silent. Then Dorgo thinks about what he said. Why would I reward a slave? His follower tosses the crown upward, confusing the skeleton, and the knight strikes Dorgo, shattering the crown in the process. The others are surprised by this. With his hands raised, the Lord of Hell raises a protective barrier. The other followers immediately protect him, raising their guards. Dorgo questions the knight. What are you supposed to be doing? He is bewildered. That attack managed to damage him even with his defense up. Finally, the knight speaks. It took some time, but finally I can move by my own will. Dorgo doesn't understand. He had completely erased the warrior's consciousness, but he was wrong. He had been observing everything, trapped inside his body, hating all his actions. Dorgo cannot afford to lose control now. He sends his follower, Estragel. The knight prepares. He launches a devastating attack, astonishing the Lord of Hell. It can't be. His most powerful weapons have fallen with a single blow. He raises his hand, unleashing his ability to revive the undead, sending them to the front as a huge horde for the knight. They are nothing but trash. Stop, he orders, opening his hand toward them and concentrating his power. He clenches his fists. They scream and explode into thousands of pieces. Dorgo is left alone. He can't believe the mistake he made at the last moment. He created a monster akin to the very gods. The skeleton tries to calm him down, but remembers that there's no problem in dying. After all, he can transfer his soul to another vessel and regain mental control. The knight raises his weapon and generates an energy. The knight mentions that during all those years, he only thought about assassinating him. For that very reason, he invented a special technique to attack the soul directly, so he won't be able to escape. For Dorgo, what he hears is impossible. Such a thing cannot exist. Knight cuts through the skeleton. It's behind a second that he gives it his all. Nothing happened. Of course, such a thing couldn't be real. He screams agonizingly toward the sky. A ray emerges and shoots out from his body, disappearing among the clouds. That was it. Dorgo explodes in an instant, leaving only his skull. The knight advances toward him, lifting his foot, whispers, "Go to hell," crushing all the remains with utmost ease. Howard sees this from his position. He doesn't understand anything at all. The knight falls to his knees. He hadn't finished. Only one thing remains to be done. To apologize to all those living beings whom he ended up killing with his own hands. Of course, he wasn't the one controlling his own actions, but still it was he who did the damage. He wants to especially ask for forgiveness. And although he knows he won't go to the same place as them for his sins, he wants to ask his family for forgiveness. Then he proceeds to bid farewell to life. Thus ended the life of the knight. Finally, he will rest in peace. Of course, if this weren't a manhwa about resurrections. And this is the apocalyptic class knight. In the darkness, a voice calls our protagonist. He opens his eyes and sees who is calling him. He is happy to see her one last time, even if it's just a vision. But what? Why does she look so young? His older sister smiles and wasn't expecting a compliment. In gratitude, she will help him when his father tries to punish him. Immediately, she heads to the house while he watches her confused. He had definitely destroyed that place. Is this a dream? Or was all that hell the real dream? He looks for a branch with his gaze, since he thinks he'll discover it soon. Holding the tip against a rock, he advances and with maximum precision connects a thrust. The small branch breaks and the protagonist finds himself surprised. "This is crazy," he says. Well, while he smiles, the rock begins to crack and explodes into pieces. The incredulous boy trembles, but this is great. He laughs like a madman, gets on his knees, and starts to cry. With his other hand, he grabs his hair, disconsolate. This is not a dream. He had really returned to the past. Our protagonist's name is Damian. And yes, that's his name, I didn't make it up. He possesses a natural talent for dishonoring his family, for which he was constantly reprimanded and punished by his father or brother. After getting involved in a fight, his sister was forced to marry a boor. That was the last straw. He lost property, family, and honor. Then he was banished by his father. Before leaving, he was called by his sister, who offered him a bag of money. Even with all that happened, she wanted her brother to be happy. Damian was shocked, dumbfounded, surprised. It was he who ruined her life, and yet she? The trembling boy took the money and fled, leaving everything behind. That day, the boy understood for the first time what guilt and shame were. Currently, that same boy wonders how he returned in time. Yes, he wanted to apologize to his family, but is this perhaps a divine miracle? Damian looks at his aching hand. Having used that technique on the rock was a bad idea. With his current power, he cannot use such techniques, like Wave Breaker, an ability that multiplies impact. He obtained it after assassinating the knight nicknamed Wall Destroyer. The young man hears his name again. Someone runs exhausted toward him. He recognizes his family's servant and tries to remember his name. Is it perhaps Victor? And yes, he came to remind the young master that he must return immediately to the mansion, at the request of Miss Lois, his sister. Damian asks the reason, but Victor has no idea. He only knows the patriarch is very angry. The protagonist has no choice but to go to find out. Inside the Viscountcy of Haxen, or whatever you want to call it, a loud scream is heard. Someone tries to assassinate Damian, forcing him to dodge. The man turns even more furious. It's his own father. While they hold him, he curses his son for still causing trouble. How dare he cause a ruckus in a tavern? Midst the shouts, now Damian remembers to what point in his life he returned, and more importantly, how long it had been since he was reprimanded by his father while his mother and brother protected him. He missed his family a lot, how twisted. Everyone is confused. The shameless Damian is crying, but his father, Paul Osborne, won't let it pass, and demands an explanation. The protagonist says he has no excuse. Of course you don't, Paul responds. Wait, what did you just say? What do you mean there's no excuse this time? While we still have the Frontierado .0 issue. Damian repeats no, he just dishonored the Viscountcy Haxen with his mistake, and accepts the blame without justifications. Paul sighs indignantly. A simple apology isn't going to change the situation much. The protagonist bows, offering to make things right. Then he walks toward the door and before leaving says, I will fix my mistakes and then I will be willing to receive a just punishment when I return. His family falls silent. They wonder if their ears aren't failing. He is ungrateful. Did he perhaps hit his head? Thus we move to the merchant city Landor. Victor accompanies the protagonist to the tavern. Are you sure about going back? He asks. According to rumors, the syndicate has connections with this place. Damian advances without worries and suggests the servant return to the mansion. He only seeks to apologize to the owner and repair his actions. Well, thinking, he says, everything has to go well. He doesn't know why or how he returned to the past. But if God gave him a second chance, he will do things correctly. He won't hurt his loved ones again. He will correct everything step by step. The guards are surprised to see him and annoyed question him for having returned. Damian searches his memories, but nothing. He doesn't know who they are. Anyway, he explains that he came to apologize to the owner for what happened. Both are bewildered and mock him. It must be a damn joke. To be the problem son of a noble family, he doesn't seem like much. Suddenly they mention Lois, calling her a girl too cute to belong to that family, giving small blows to Damian's face. The bully asks for his sister's hand as compensation for the previous night. The protagonist snatches the knife from him. His only objective was to apologize, but things had to get complicated. The guard threatens Damian and ends up losing his hand. The man looks confused at his fallen extremity and then proceeds to scream in pain. His companions draw their swords. Damian raises his guard openly. He will demonstrate what the problem son of the Haxen family is capable of. All of this has been seen by Victor. Hidden among the houses, it can't be. The idea of apologizing ended in another conflict. The screams fill the streets, attracting the attention of some onlookers. The guard tries to threaten the protagonist with his name, claiming they are part of the Dark Snake. How dare he touch them? That name only makes Damian remember Dark Snake. An organization that in that era was expanding uncontrollably. That tavern was one of their bases, and when the protagonist complained about the high prices, they beat and humiliated him in front of a crowd. Now he smiles ironically. Well, it is he who deserves an apology. For the bully, the title of nobility means nothing. And anyway, he plans to assassinate Damian. He jumps, lifting his weapon, and cuts the air. The attack is dodged with ease. And upon falling, he crashes his face against the ground. Before recovering, he hears a voice. I should kill you all, but I won't do it yet. Out of respect for my family, it's Damian holding his leg to injure it. Both members of the Dark Snake are out of combat, but a shout calls the protagonist's attention. It's a reinforcement group from the same organization. The leader asks who the hell Damian is. Does he belong to another gang, perhaps? The boy answers no, that he only came to resolve a matter. And by the way, to file a complaint with the owner of the place, so that he apologizes to him. The man doesn't understand, nor is he interested. He points at the protagonist and orders his men to give him a beating. They all pounce on him. Damian prepares and at full speed cuts the hands of the attackers, passing over them. The leader is left open-mouthed. How can a brat be so skilled? Damian curses. He can't believe that with a single attack he is already panting from exhaustion. The man apologizes immediately, but it's already too late. He is chased by Damian, and a jet of blood flies when he reaches him. Inside the tavern, everyone eats and drinks calmly until they turn upon hearing the door. It's the leader of the thug group. No, it's Damian holding him after breaking his neck. The boy drops him, saying they should have listened when he tried to be friendly. Everyone inside watches him as he wipes the blood from his face like a lunatic. People begin to flee. They don't want anything to do with this. Damian walks calmly. At least without people, there will be less commotion. A man calls the guards from the second floor. It's Anderson, the owner of the place. The protagonist responds calmly. If you're referring to the fools out there, I wouldn't count on them. Anderson is surprised, and immediately asks why the young man comes to look for trouble without reason. Damian expresses himself and explains that he was there to receive an apology for the misunderstanding generated earlier, which ended up causing him many problems. Anderson pretends not to understand the situation and asks, smiling, does that mean the Viscount of Haxen no longer has honor to lose? Damian remains silent, pointing at him. Anderson demands that he pay for the damages caused and for scaring away his customers. The protagonist smiles at that order. He had thought about forgiving him if he apologized, but he doesn't dislike the second option either. Damian advances swiftly and jumps against the owner. He will also pay for having disrespected his family. He prepares his weapon, but a man comes out of nowhere, surprising the protagonist. He intervenes in the attack, and Damian recognizes that type of energy before landing on the first floor. Anderson is glad that Sir Tech came to his defense. Interrupting him, Damian addresses Tech. He doesn't seem the type of person a tavern could hire as a guard, so tell me why a knight is in a place like this. Knights throughout their life travel the path of martial arts. They are assigned a level according to their abilities: apprentice, knight apprentice, and official knight. The latter are capable of releasing their aura at will, toppling mountains, or destroying their enemies like trash. Anderson is full of laughter, since Tech is a knight apprentice very close to the leader of the Dark Snake. That clears Damian's doubt. No wonder he felt a small pinch of aura at that moment. Tech looks annoyed. How could he feel the aura if it wasn't even materialized? The protagonist mentions that he can't think of many reasons why a man like that works in a tavern. He must have been expelled for lack of talent. Perhaps he isn't even an apprentice. Anderson asks how much money it would cost to eliminate the brat. But Tech doesn't care about money. The word apprentice threw him off balance. He jumps and insults Damian. He's going to cut him, but Tech dodges at the last second. He's not going to stop there. While Damian evades the blows, he thinks Tech seems to have some skill after all. Swiftly, he mocks another of his attacks, but the protagonist begins to tire. His current body isn't capable of keeping up the pace. Damned brat, Tech tells him, let's see if you can run from this. He spins, lifting his sword. Damian notices the change in posture. It must be a secret technique. Tech launches the attack, and the boy closes his eyes, ready to counterattack. But first, let's go to a memory. A man is assassinated by the legendary master assassin. He doesn't understand the plans of the Lord of Hell. If all humans die, there would be no one to have fun with. In that way, he ends up threatening the protagonist and refusing to follow Dorgo. Damian, on the other hand, watches him in silence. The assassin gets angry and doesn't hide his bloodlust. He will kill the man before his eyes in a blink. He attacks with his secret technique, Death Blade, and cuts Damian in half. The fight didn't last even 3 seconds. Then the assassin notices something, and turning, he sees something disgusting. The flesh is regenerating. His tissues are rejoining. How is it possible? Is it perhaps? Yes, he is an undead. Damian places his gaze on the assassin. He petrifies from fear, and the protagonist splits him in half. He barely had time to process it. His technique was stolen in an instant. End of memory. Returning to the battle, it's Tech who falls victim to such an ability. It's always like this. This expression is the last thing his enemies see. Since after becoming a Death Knight, he obtained the ability to copy and steal other abilities. Anderson saw everything from the second floor. He's screwed. He's run out of tricks up his sleeve. A moment later, this same man, along with his guards, kneels before Damian and begs for forgiveness for offending the Viscountcy Haxen. They offer monetary compensation. Damian responds that, well, although it's not enough, he could let it pass this time. He turns and calls Victor, asking him to keep the money. While performing his task, Victor remains stupefied from seeing those movements of Damian. Since when is he so good? Finally, both boys leave the tavern satisfied. As he walks away, Anderson thinks about how he will carry out his revenge. He could talk with the boss of the Dark Snake but a clean cut slices off his ear. Damian used the secret technique Death Blade, all the gold he had. He says he forgot to provide a punishment. And taking advantage, he reminds Anderson that, if he or the Dark Snake go after his family, he will make sure it's their end. Sobbing from the pain and still furious, Anderson thinks about buying revenge someday. This idiot knows that every act he performs currently will not erase his past actions. However, he is going to make sure of one thing in this new life. He is not going to disappoint his family again. And so, Damian and Victor return home under the sunset. Meanwhile, in the mansion of Leon Blummy or something like that, damn it, a boy looking at himself in the mirror asks his brother if he has heard that phrase, pain always follows love. The other boy doesn't understand where that meaningless question comes from. He turns to answer. The boy answers that he will go out to find love with a... The next day at the mansion of the Viscount of Haxen, Damian, accompanied by Victor, mentions having slept like a baby. In contrast, his servant couldn't sleep a wink from seeing people losing extremities. For the protagonist, that doesn't matter. After all, it went well. They even got extra loot, and not only that, surely rumors won't take long to spread that way. Perhaps the fame of being the useless son of Haxen changes a little. Victor responds that yes, perhaps it improves. But the Dark Snake might attack in retaliation. Damian reassures him, if they try something, he will be there to defend the family. His servant agrees. He definitely possesses great skill with fencing. But young master, when did you learn to use the sword like that? Damian turns and responds that he had some practice from time to time. A scream echoes through the hallway. It's Paul. He runs toward the protagonist and asks where he had been. Did he dishonor the family again? Unconcerned, Damian responds that he only needs to see what the servant is carrying. A bag full of gold, scrolls, potions, and even the deed to the tavern. The protagonist's parents are incredulous while he explains it was a small compensation for the misunderstanding from a few days ago. Paul keeps questioning. Really, his son wasn't the one who caused the problem. Damian says that Victor himself witnessed everything and, winking, adds, I'm sure he'll tell how things happened. The servant confirms the protagonist's words. His parents finally calm down and congratulate their son. On the other hand, Victor wonders if perhaps Damian is a compulsive liar. A few hours later, the protagonist runs at full speed. Exhausted, he leans against a tree. He has many things to do, but his body is too weak. It doesn't even withstand a small jog. From his pocket, he takes out a small tonic. He was lucky to have gotten it at the tavern. What is this? Asks Damian. Anderson answers that it's a tonic concocted by the Alchemy Academy. It increases stamina and energy. The protagonist then remembered. It's a small group specialized in the elaboration of tonics or potions. Each of their creations is as valuable as a magic stone, definitely a stroke of luck. End of the mini-story. Damian opens and drinks the potion. Immediately he feels its effects, but strength must continue like this and increase his stamina. His mission is to recover the power from his past life. He will emerge into the light within a few years along with his army of undead. He must be ready to assassinate him without complications. In that way, he can protect his family from the immediate danger. After mentalizing his objective, he sighs and continues running. During the night in Landor, the hideout of the Dark Snake is found. A man curses while eating. In front of him is a defeated Tech, although he doesn't seem very angry about losing one of his best men. This man is Cedric Walker. A member asks what they should do with T. Cedric suggests throwing him in some alley. After all, with money it's always possible to recover the loss. Tech barely gets up, using his weapon for support. Cedric, upon seeing him, fakes happiness and offers him a new deal. Once he recovers, he could work with them again. Trembling, T lunges at Cedric. He's not going to stand this lack of respect, but he stops advancing. His foot was caught by an ability. It doesn't stop there and takes his arms as well. This man is the first target of my contract, sir? Asks a man entering the room. Cedric responds, of course. I have to demonstrate my abilities. The unknown man murmurs words. The ability over tea spreads through his body, lifting him along with multiple creatures that go after him. One of them opens its mouth, and a drop of its saliva falls on tea, terrifying him. He screams for forgiveness, but it's too late. The beasts begin to devour him alive, starting from his extremities. His foot is torn off, falls to the ground. Nothing more remains. Cedric covers his mouth. He finds it disgusting. The unknown man asks if he is satisfied. Yes, responds Cedric. Next time, try to make it a little less messy. The man accepts the request, and Cedric explains to him why they hired him. Someone insulted their organization, but being a noble, it's complicated to attack him directly. His job will be to cause him indirect harm. The more he suffers, the greater the reward. But for now, they will give him an advance, which is accepted with gratitude. Leave the rest to me. It'll be a piece of cake, responds the guy. Damian, even being exhausted, continues exercising. The tonic was very effective. Just one day later, a great difference in his stamina was noted. But there's something he hasn't stopped thinking about. Perhaps the dark snake really isn't after him. Quickly he turns. There's someone in the bushes. It must be them. With his hand, he hurries and grabs the spy's neck. But he stops from surprise. It's not an assassin scent. Damian lets him go, and the boy falls to the ground. And it's the protagonist's brother, who in his previous life was decapitated by his own hands. Damian falls silent for a second before apologizing and offering his hand to help him. Abel refuses. He didn't come looking for apologies. According to his father, he redeemed himself with the bar situation, even leaving several people injured. How dare he lie so shamelessly? No, that's the truth, responds the protagonist with confidence. Abel scolds him. How can he keep lying like that? Damian doesn't even know how to fight. Therefore, the boy keeps doing countless things to clean up his disasters. The disasters of the problem child. Damian places his hand on Abel's head, thinking about how the boy has always been diligent, worrying about the family, so he reassures him. From now on, he will no longer cause more problems. Victor arrives shouting, "There's bad news." Both brothers look confused. In a hurry, he heads toward the room, and Damian enters with concern. Inside are his parents along with the strange boy from before. He left his test on the table and greets the protagonist. Therefore, the boy from he doesn't know anything about what happened at the banquet. Damian curses. In fact, it's something that worried him, and apparently that event already took place. Now Erwin Leon Bloom has come to take advantage. Mini memory, during the past banquet, a conflict occurred with Erwin because of his mockery against the protagonist's sister. The damned one didn't care about Damian's anger. Moreover, it was he who whispered directly in his ear, according to that, "She is ashamed to have you as a brother." That was the last straw. Therefore, Damian hit him directly in the face, sending him flying. But on Erwin's face, there was only a smile. End of memory. Currently, there are no doubts about it. The provocation was part of his plan. That blow is what he sought. Erwin speaks with a smile. He says he has admired Miss Lois for a long time. Paul doesn't understand, and the boy continues. "Please allow me to take your daughter's hand, and I will forget having been hit." The family is even surprised by the young man's request, except Damian. He also took advantage of coming from a powerful family. Paul refuses. His daughter already has a fiancé, and they won't change their mind. These words annoy Erwin, who begins to insist. "Then you won't fix your lack of respect. You prefer to face my family before giving your daughter's hand?" Paul has an internal conflict. The lone Blooms, or whatever the hell that's said, are famous for their strength. But he also won't leave his daughter in the hands of a bastard known for his lust. Well, interrupts Lois, entering the room. She is accepting Erwin's offer. His parents can't believe it. She can't make such a hasty decision. Let's see, he also questions her. "You don't have to cover Damian's disasters." The protagonist lowers his head. "It's happening again. Everything is his fault." Lois says she's fine with accompanying Erwin. This one smiles with malice. His plan was a complete success. Standing up, the bastard congratulates the girl for being intelligent and walks toward her, promising to send a formal request with the details. Then now they'll look for a room for. Damian intercepts his path. During the protagonist's previous life, this one ran excitedly. He receives the news that his sister had returned for a visit after a long time of being gone, and he was eager to see her, to cross her hardened face. Erwin gets bored and calms him, calling him brother-in-law. The protagonist murmurs, "You will not ruin her life again." The damned one responds he didn't hear well. He needs to hear it again. But what he receives is a punch in response, making his nose bleed, falling to the ground. And Damian thinks about how once again, and he was eager to see her. He crosses the door hoping to reunite with whom he has missed so much, but he was horrified by the scene. His dear sister was being mistreated by Erwin, and he insults her because she wants to leave him to return home. Erwin throws her to the ground and puts on a glove. He thinks about educating her appropriately so she doesn't think about leaving again. He clenched his fist and began to hit her. All of that was witnessed by the protagonist, who falls to his knees. Well, everything was his fault. His sister suffers because of him. Erwin Lyon Blum, my God, end of the story. Now it's too late to back out. The bastard was already on the ground. Two men rush in hurriedly, asking about the young master. Damian notices they are Erwin's escort. Erwin starts to get up amidst laughter. He takes his sword, scaring the protagonist's parents. He draws it, threatening Damian with death. His escort intervenes. They won't allow their master to get his hands dirty. Erwin orders them to get out of the way. One of them refuses, and Erwin turns him around. Erwin is unhinged and doesn't want to be interrupted. Abel and Lloyd worry upon seeing the bastard start walking in Damian's direction. The girl thinks about how to save her brother and makes the decision to beg, being stopped by the protagonist. Everything will be fine. He will take care of the situation, and sacrificing his sister. Let's have a duel, offers the protagonist to Erwin. The deal is simple. If Damian loses, he will be the damned one's personal slave. And in case of winning, the conflict will be resolved. To Erwin, it seems absurd. Miss Lois had already accepted going with him. Then Damian provokes him, calling him a coward. This strikes the young man's pride. The wretched one curses and thinks about leaving the protagonist crippled and then taking his sister. So he accepts the challenge with a macabre smile from ear to ear. Outside the Haxen mansion, they prepare for the duel. Damian's mother wants to stop him, but it's no longer possible. On the other hand, Abel thinks his father is wrong. There's no miracle to expect. Erwin Longbloom, or whatever the hell his name is, apparently already reached the level of knight apprentice. It's impossible to defeat him. Both are ready to begin. And instead of using a sword, Damian will wield his most powerful weapon, a fork. Both Erwin and the protagonist's family are completely surprised and disappointed. His rival is in fits of laughter and mockery. He thinks Damian lost his mind. The attack strikes and is dodged. He didn't expect that reaction. He tightens the handle of his sword and uses his secret technique, roaring lion slash. The impact raises a cloud of dust. The ground is cut in several places. However, the protagonist manages to come out unscathed. Erwin's escort can't believe it. How is it possible that his master failed like that? It wasn't a mistake. Damian dodged each of the cuts without complication, a fact that influences Erwin. The protagonist understands his opponent's bewilderment. After all, he already knows those techniques after fighting with Michelin Blum, who, by the way, is vastly superior to Erwin. This same bastard trembles with rage, and Damian notices it instantly. His opponent began to use aura. He won't be able to dodge the next blow. Erwin advances and jumps, swinging his sword. The protagonist feels it the moment to use the technique of the Sword Saint. The clash of both resonates with force. Lois and Abel are stunned. Erwin petrifies, his sword trembles, a simple fork. Damian shouts. He uses his other technique, Thunder Shadow Revelation, disarming his opponent. Erwin knows it, this is his end. Damian advances and stabs directly in the neck. This is a protagonist, he doesn't play around. Siblings, his father, and Erwin's escort couldn't believe it. It didn't end in murder. Damian had mercy, causing him only a small wound. That's enough for the bastard to fall to the ground terrified. For the protagonist, killing him 1,000,000 times would still be insufficient, but he must let it pass for the moment. Confidently, he speaks to Erwin. And wait, I retract what I said before. Damned wretch, he deceived. Confidently, he speaks to Erwin. You must fulfill your part of the deal. Get lost and leave behind what happened. You are not welcome in our home. The next day, the Haxen family eats in silence. Once Damian finishes his plate, he thanks for the food and gets up. He must do his morning training. Merylda, the protagonist's mother, wants to talk with Damian about what happened yesterday. Abel seems the most affected since he still doesn't understand how Erwin lost. Paul responds no. Surely when the time comes, he himself will talk about what happened without the need to pressure him. Merylda looks at him impressed. That was a genuine show of trust toward his son. Could it be? No, Paul is also dying of curiosity, although for some reason he has the feeling that it would be better not to inquire about it. He is afraid of his own son. Moments later, Damian is ready to go out. The protagonist remembers he didn't apologize to her, and swiftly he bows to his sister. He was imprudent and put her in a complicated situation. It will never happen again. He did it. She takes him by the shoulder. That wasn't it. Even so, she understands. For her, it was a moment too tense. She was afraid and said she would follow Erwin because she felt it was the only option. Damian thinks he is an idiot and deserves any scolding, but no. This is not a scolding. It's a disaster. The protagonist remembers he didn't apologize to her, and swiftly he bows to his sister. He felt very happy when he hit the wretch. For that very reason, he came to thank her. The protagonist looks into her eyes before those words and responds that truly it is he who should thank her for all the times his sister covered for him or helped when he caused problems. Turning, he adds that everything will be fine from now on. Lois stops him. She also came to leave him a gift. It's Paul's favorite sword, a family treasure, although his father didn't know it. Lois stops him. She also came to leave him a gift. It's a family treasure. Although his father is a man of few words, he also appreciates Damian. Only he must keep something in mind. He is part of the Viscountcy. Don't use a fork as if it were a weapon again. Honor the family. Damian draws the sword, grateful to his father for such a gift. Paul sneezes. He thinks he must be about to catch a cold. During the night, a shadow slips into the home of the Haxen family. The guards don't notice it and are surrounded, leaving the entrance free. The intruder calmly opens the gates and continues his path toward the mansion. Inside, he roams the hallways like a ghost. Both Abel and the protagonist's parents sleep peacefully. The intruder stops in front of a room and slowly opens the door. Inside, he encounters Lois. The man can't believe it. He had only come for his contract with the dark snake. He didn't expect to find such beauty in this place. It's his lucky day. He brings his hand closer to take the defenseless girl, but a voice stops him. It's the protagonist leaning against the door, carrying his sword, and with a cold gaze asks, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Damian came here after feeling a strange energy, but he didn't expect to find a disgusting old man. The guy curses. His magic should make everyone sleep. How is it that a boy escaped him? He turns swiftly and shoots a mana ball that Damian dodges, and he asks the protagonist about his identity and how he could hide his presence. Damian responds that those questions should be answered by the old man. He isn't the one invading someone else's house. And getting into guard, he asks the man why he entered his sister's room. More screams are heard outside, calling the man's attention. The people who were sleeping had woken up. Then he uses his shadow ability to envelop himself and shoot out through the window. The protagonist orders him to stop and chases him, but doesn't manage to catch him, so he can disappear among the bushes. This annoys the protagonist until he notices a detail. Part of the old man's energy remained impregnated on the window, and it's of a very special type. Now later, with the first rays of sun, the servants panic, not knowing what to do. The purebred horse of the Haxen family is dead. Once the entire pause, they could be punished. Damian interrupts them, making them jump in fright. The protagonist reassures them. He has no intention of scolding them. He just needs the stable alone for a moment. When the servants leave, Damian analyzes the horse. The old man's trail led him directly there. The guy uses dark mana. That obviously makes him a dark mage. Apparently, the protagonist's family still hasn't realized what has happened. But what has happened is that the protagonist's family didn't realize what has happened. Then it's the perfect opportunity to follow the energy trail. A purple light shines from within a cave. It's the hideout of that mage who laughs, mocking Cedric, the leader of the dark snake. It turns out the mage tricked him into gathering certain objects with the excuse of performing a curse. But he will use them for his experiments. Unfortunately for him, the Holy Church pursues him. That leads him to take pathetic jobs to earn money and hide. How disgusting. Damian speaks aloud, catching the mage. If you're going to be one of those old men who don't bathe often, you should ventilate your hideout. The man recognizes him. It's the one who caught him during his infiltration. The eldest son of the Haxen family. But how did he find him? Damian responds it was simple. With such a stench, anyone could find him. The mage understands this isn't a normal boy. After all, he humiliated the dark snake. And that's why they hired him to attack his family. The protagonist finds it pathetic that he accepted that job. That is the reason why. The mage prepares his mana, challenging Damian to do something about it. The protagonist, on the other hand, responds calmly that he made a promise, not to murder when necessary, with one exception. All dark mages must be eliminated. The man knows he's in trouble. Clearly, a normal boy wouldn't know that information. He unleashes magical bursts and launches multiple attacks that Damian dodges with ease. The protagonist prepares and cuts the mage in two. He almost dies but activates his magic and his body begins to repair the damage. The mage mocks Damian. That kind of attack won't manage to defeat him. The protagonist cuts him again, angered, says he's going to find out now. He unleashes a rain of attacks against the mage. This one congratulates him for his bravery. The rumors were true. However, upon entering the cave, he sealed his fate. Damian turns his arm and was caught by a shadow monster, one of those that killed Tech. The dark mage had placed a trap in case the Holy Church managed to find him. Damian worries, since this can be more dangerous than expected. "Now your body will be consumed," shouts the mage. "You regret having crossed paths with an official of Yulan." Damian is enveloped by darkness, receiving the mage's mockery. He surely remembered Cedric's instructions were to cause the greatest possible harm to his family. So if there's no one to stop him, he'll go after the little beauty he saw last night. Damian interrupts him. He recognized the attack as a decomposition-type curse. The guy couldn't believe it. Why doesn't the curse affect the boy? How does he know so much about dark magic? Damian didn't answer. Something had him very confused, because he still possessed authority. And let's go to a memory. Dorgo, the Lord of Hell, celebrated having completed his search. He turned confused to see Damian, his best death knight. It was Dorgo himself who provided him with the most powerful body. And yet he was dissatisfied. His knight should be the ultimate weapon. He placed the palm of his hand. After handing supreme power to a follower once he absorbed it, no mortal could stop him. He concentrated his magic. From the vessel emerged a voracious ray of energy. This was authority. He joined his hands and diverted all that energy directly toward his knight. It was an incredible power. Even Dorgo had complications dominating it. The authority joined Damian's body, making him scream in pain. A strong and bright explosion marked the end of the absorption. Dorgo covered his sight. Now his death knight was possessor of the authority of God. Damian believed he had lost that power once he returned to the past. But there it was, the mark. A magical attack was launched in his direction, and at the last second he managed to dodge it. The mage asked for answers. How was it that Damian knew so much about the dark arts? Isn't it obvious? I have my tricks up my sleeve. It's called plot armor protection, responded the protagonist. He broke the fourth wall. Now with seriousness, Damian remembered that the mage must be an official of Yulan, an organization specialized in assassinations with dark magic. It wasn't surprising that he had a bit of skill. The mage noticed something strange regarding the protagonist. He could no longer prolong the combat. Showing his bracelet, he mentioned his ace up his sleeve. He had it saved to use against the church, but he would have to employ it now. An incredible amount of dark mana envelops the mage, spreading marks all over his body. Damian alerts. That bracelet seemed to be a storage artifact full of mana. With his new power, the mage summoned a monster of infernal flames and insults Damian. This time he couldn't dispel the magic. He launched the attack, impacting fully on the protagonist. It's over, thought the dark mage. With those flames, he had definitely been charred. I think you've misunderstood something, interrupted Damian, terrifying his opponent. The authority of greed isn't based on dispelling magical attacks. A shockwave emanates from the protagonist. Actually, says Damian, the authority absorbs every last drop of dark mana from the attacks received, increasing the strength of its bearer. The mage panics. An authority? How is it possible that someone like Damian possesses one? It's none of your business, responds the protagonist. He raises his guard. He hates using the power granted by Dorgo, but unfortunately this time he had to do it to win. The dark mage recognized the protagonist's sword ability, or a blade. Only those who reached the master level of the sword could use it. Damian used his soul-cutting slash to prevent the mage from being able to heal, and it was so powerful that it brought down the cave wall. The protagonist's strength is not to be taken lightly. The mage barely survived. This was taken advantage of by Damian, who impaled him with his sword, promising to assassinate the idols and reveal the hideout of the dark snake. That same day, hours later, in the merchant city of Landor, Victor asks his lord why he is heading immediately to the city center. And even more importantly, what kind of macabre book is he carrying? Victor explained to him that it was a dark magic grimoire, which by obtaining he could assassinate a stinky mage. Victor didn't believe him. Even though he was an idiot servant and couldn't read, it was common knowledge that those books were dangerous and difficult to obtain. A strong smell called his attention before the driver announced they had arrived at the destination. The protagonist was the first to get off, carrying a bag. He handed it to his servant, asking him a favor. Victor asks what's in the bag. Ahead, responds the protagonist. Victor told him the contents, thinking it was another of his heavy jokes, and damn, it was a real head. Immediately he screamed and threw the bag. Damian caught it and tried to calm him down so he would stop calling attention. The protagonist searched in his pocket and took out a notebook. The poor Victor's mission would be to take both things to a specific place. We find ourselves at the Dark Snake's facilities. The protagonist stood in front of the guards, calling the bastards, to have a criminal organization not fearing a situation hidden in the middle of the city. The subjects didn't understand what Damian meant until one of them recognized him as the target of their boss. The protagonist was glad to skip introductions. He demands to speak with Cedric. Ah, clear, if that's your motive, you can pass whenever you want, responded the guard nonchalantly. His companion took out a weapon and shot at the sky, leaving a bright burst. It was an alarm. The first guard mocked Damian. Of course he could see the boss if he was capable of surviving. Members of the Dark Snake watch from the roofs while others move to their positions. The protagonist already knew what it was about, an ambush. But that wasn't a problem for our tough guy. With a smile on his face, he said he was already expecting this kind of cheap tactics. Meanwhile, Bastian Bacher, the commander of Landor, enjoyed the best luxuries along with C. Robert, leader of the city's knights. It turns out both had a close deal with the leader of the Dark Snake and were in a business scene. Sebastian was agreeing to cede the Red Light District to Cedric. Red Light District or Red District refers to a district full of ladies of the night. After all, being the governor, he could suppress anyone's complaints. Robert joins the chat, apologizing for not being able to offer much to the deal. But for Cedric it was enough. Even though he was the city guard, it must be difficult to protect so many people, and therefore the reward should be adequate. Robert accepted the praise, agreeing with Cedric. Having comfort, women, and alcohol is a quite fair reward for any man. The truth, ha-ha-ha. Both let themselves go without realizing Cedric's true plans. To continue like this, very soon he would stop bowing to these two idiots. Once the Dark Snake took complete control of the city, he would have enormous power. A follower of Cedric interrupted the meeting to talk with his boss. To not ruin the moment, they decided to speak outside the room. Once his follower informed him of the situation, Cedric couldn't help but let out a shout, surprising his guests. And what gave Cedric was that the ingredient list was just a scam. Anyway, the guy wasn't interested. It was impossible for Damian to manage to get to him. He had only come to die. Outside the building, tonic bottles were scattered on the ground. The protagonist was preparing before starting the combat. He dropped the last empty bottle and charged against his enemies, splitting them in half without hesitation. Although there was something more. It didn't worry Cedric since someone owed him a favor. He wouldn't have it easy. A few minutes later, Cedric sweats like a pig. Out of pure curiosity, he went out to his balcony to see the situation. The protagonist had already finished with most of the Dark Snake members. Out of astonishment, he doubted the boy's identity. Was it really Damian Haxen, or however his last name is said, the same loser from the rumors? Cedric then understood. The mage he hired perhaps didn't scam him, but rather failed. Midst the battle, someone pointed at Damian with his staff. It was a high rank of the Dark Snake. He invoked fire and launched it against the protagonist, who raised his posture, causing the man's mockery for using a sword against fire. Damian used the secret technique, Revelation of the Thousand Shadows, and manipulated the attack, directing it against his attacker, who did not react in time and took the powerful flame head-on. The protagonist managed to finish off all the members of the organization. Now he only had to go in and look for Cedric, but a fist surprised him. He dodged at the last instant. The fierce attacker was driven into the ground. Damian was now worried. That man's aura gave him goosebumps, and if he possessed such powerful energy, it meant that person was an official knight. Passers-by began to call attention to the scene. The city soldiers surrounded Damian. That could only mean one thing. "How dare you cause chaos in my city?" shouted Sebastian, standing next to Cedric, promising to punish the protagonist for his terrible acts. "Why?" asked Damian literally. "I haven't done anything." Sebastian, indignant, blamed him for wanting to attack Cedric, a kind and pure-hearted man who only tried to bear fruit as a merchant. The people, hearing that, said it was ridiculous. Since when did a mafia pig have the right to be called a merchant? Now Cedric was confident. No matter how brave Damian was, he would not dare go against someone protected by the governor. But the protagonist cared very little. He called Cedric as if he were a dog. They had a pending matter to resolve, and they were going to resolve it with blows. He also took the opportunity to mock Sebastian. He turned out to be just another corrupt politician who adores criminals. It seems the attack. The governor called him out, offering to forgive the criminals. The protagonist feels his apology to Cedric, and obviously the protagonist refused such stupidity. Sebastian, tired of arguing, ordered his knight to finish the problem. Then Robert began to walk, preparing his battle axe. Being face to face with Damian, he demanded he show some respect by surrendering. He had no need to act brave only to end up dead. The protagonist found those words funny. He responded that it wasn't bravery but confidence. To the knight, it just seemed stupid. He struck the ground with his weapon. Damian managed to dodge by jumping back. Although he had confidence, he currently did not possess the strength to defeat an official knight. Robert threw a punch and Damian raised his guard. The impact sent him flying, but doing a flip he managed to land well. Trying to deflect the attack was in vain. His arm suffered significant damage. How much longer would they take to arrive? He wonders. Robert lunged, taking advantage of Damian's distraction. He was fast, he couldn't dodge this time, but a hooded figure stopped the attack, parrying it with his arm. The knight's axe flew several meters backward. The soldiers, Cedric and Sebastian, couldn't believe it. The most surprised was Robert. Was he an accomplice of the boy? He wonders. The unknown figure revealed his face. Not only did he have an enormous aura, but also beautiful eyes. Damian heard his name and turned happily. It was Victor who brought the help. A cheerful and very sweaty Victor. Cedric is furious. What the hell is a paladin doing here? If the Holy Church has come, it's because they must have discovered something about the Dark Mage. Damian calms his servants, telling them he is fine and jokes about firing them if they are ever so late again. Although now more importantly, since the paladin is here, what's up? The paladin is here. The paladin is here. Now more importantly, since the paladin is here, it was a successful plan. Victor agrees. There's no better man for carrying out orders. And here a mini flashback. A few hours earlier at the Holy Church, Victor arrived in the middle of a prayer, and the paladin dressed as a nun looks at him confused. Victor asks if this was one of the Holy Church's headquarters. And I think it's pretty obvious that yes. The girl responds affirmatively and asks what the young man needs. Immediately, Victor explains how his lord ordered him to bring the bag and the notebook as soon as possible, in addition to notifying about the appearance of a dark mage. The mission regarding the mage surprises the girl, who asks to see the objects right away. Analyzing the notebook, she notes the dark magic it emits, and even more importantly, the marked symbol. She quickly takes the bag and opens it, taking the mage's head by the hair, scaring poor Victor. Finally, this was Agido, one of the leaders of Yulan, the organization the mage mentioned before. There's no time to lose, says the paladin. Be ready to look for Damian and gather more information from him. In the present, now that threatening woman is blushing, asking the protagonist if he is the one who sent that letter. When Damian confirms, the young paladin says she understands, and that from there the Holy Church will take control of the situation. Both Sebastian and Cedric worry upon hearing that. On the other hand, the girl thanks him for the delivered evidence. Damian didn't expect her to be so pretty and kind. He expected someone more impatient and furious. The Holy Church is formed by those who live their lives serving God, being incredibly merciful. But when dealing with heretics or demons, they do not hesitate for a second to show their fanaticism. That is why the Church's vanguard can be terrifying. Come on, this is almost the same as 40K. And right now the good side is that they are on the protagonist's side, redundant as it may be. The paladin informs both the soldiers and the citizens that the Church received information that someone there has had dealings with dark mages. The people begin to murmur. They can't believe it. What kind of bastard would bring a heretic to the city? And then the girl continues. Until all those involved are found, Landor will be under church administration. Immediately, Sebastian refuses. The kingdom granted the city the right to self-govern, and being the viceroy, he will not surrender his power. The paladin is clear. I will eradicate the heretics, the will of God. The kingdom does not surpass that authority. And furthermore, both Sebastian and Robert will be taken for interrogation. It's about Sebastian and against Cedric, revealing to everyone that he was the one who made the deal with that dark mage, and his organization couldn't have gotten so far without someone's support or protection. He must have some connection. They will be considered guilty. Sebastian explodes in anger against Cedric while he tries to deny the accusation, calling the paladin a liar. With total confidence, the paladin searches and pulls out the evidence. It is the very notebook of the dark mage in which he had noted all of Cedric's intrusions. Cedric himself can't believe it and curses the stupid mage. Who keeps a diary of the bad things they do? For God's sake, that's second-rate villain stuff. I didn't expect a grown adult man to have a damn diary with that written. Shouting, he swears it is a misunderstanding, but the girl is not stupid and orders them to be taken away. The church members do not delay in arresting them and begin to take them. Sebastian sees it and now understands. It was Damian who planned all this. It was checkmate. There's no way to know who will deal with these fanatics. Cedric speaks with Robert, begging him not to give up. Robert wouldn't be able to stop this madness, and Robert knows it. He could reach H and fight for his life. His only chance of survival would be that. So he breaks free using his aura and runs desperately, recovers his weapon, and goes directly against the girl. Cedric smiles. It's easy to manipulate a brute like him. But Damian believes both are truly stupid. The paladin is skilled and powerful. Against Robert's attack with great speed, she already raises her fist and lands a tremendous blow, destroying the knight's armor. This leaves Cedric and Sebastian speechless. Damian, on the other hand, already expected it. The blow went completely through the body, and upon withdrawing it, an abundant amount of blood shoots out. And this one is good. This one kills. Those who disobey the will of God, no matter who it is, will be punished. Amen. That was all, and Cedric knows it. All that's left is to hear Sebastian's insults towards him. Damian and Victor don't lag behind. They also mock the supposed great mobster who terrorized the city. He observes them with hate and rage, not understanding how he was overthrown by a child. Damian thanks the paladin for her help. Just as he thought, she possesses enormous holy power. Perhaps she could even become a student of the great saint. He calls her Zulbringandin or something like that, a powerful and famous man known for destroying the high-profile Axis. The kid interrupts the protagonist's thoughts, as he also wants to express his gratitude towards the boy who hunted a high-ranking official of Yulan. For that reason, the church will not reprimand him. That word leaves Damian. There's no reason to reprimand me? The paladin, however, responds that it's obvious. He used the matter of the dark mage to camouflage his attack on the dark snake. The protagonist apologizes for the misunderstanding. The mage really had been hired by Cedric to attack his family, and he had to defend himself. The paladin falls silent for a moment until her gaze softens. Then she turns her head, accepting. She says she cannot judge a boy for taking care of his own. Even more importantly, she says the reward for the mage's head will be delivered to him as soon as possible, 1,000 gold coins, a fortune sufficient to buy a castle. But after thinking for a few seconds, Damian asks if it's possible to request something else in return. His servant can't believe it. With all the money he wasted in recent years, how can he not accept more money? Damian explains that he would like to obtain one of the mana cultivation techniques that the church possesses. The girl doesn't understand why he needs that. The dark snake will no longer go after him. In Damian's mind, the answer is clear. He won his battle against the mage thanks to the authority, and he won't always have that luck. On his path, there will be more incredibly powerful enemies before reaching Dorgo, and to overcome that obstacle, he must strengthen his mana through high-level training. Of course, instead of saying this, he responds that he just wants to master some advanced skills just in case. The paladin sees enormous potential in him. With his strength and determination, they could defeat other heretics. After analyzing it well, she smiles and suggests something even better. How about you join the Holy Church as a paladin? That proposal leaves Damian blank, who refuses without thinking, destroying the girl's illusion. But she can't accept it. Not only is it incredibly difficult to become a paladin, but it is also one of the greatest honors possible. Damian knows it and perhaps would accept if it didn't mean becoming a dog of the church. He thinks quickly of a response and says the first thing that comes to mind. I am not yet worthy of receiving God's love. For now, my goal is to travel the world, forging my own path as a faithful and humble devotee. It's shameless. There's no way the girl would believe that nonsense. And well, it worked. The protagonist's words left her stunned. She agrees with him. She will grant him the cultivation technique and leave open the possibility of becoming a paladin in the future. To Damian, it seems like a good deal. Anyway, he doesn't plan to join the church. She still hasn't introduced herself. My name is Agnes, and I am the first apprentice of the Blue Flame, or Azure. The protagonist responds that it is quite an honor. It seems he ran directly into the main disciple of that old saint. All that's left is to say goodbye to Agnes and finish his business, although Victor just wants to go home. It was a too stressful day. A shadow covers Cedric, making him look up and finding himself with Damian. He receives a kick in the stomach before he can speak. The protagonist mocks the damn guy while he vomits, the fat on his body boiled from fear. Damian kicks him again, this time in the face, breaking a tooth, under the gaze of Agnes and Victor. Damian sighs in relief. Finally, after so many problems, he is satisfied. His servant asks him quietly if they could return to the mansion since everything was resolved. Elsewhere in the lands of the Marquis Lido Bloom family, a man enters shouting for his son. Inside the room, only the butler and someone hidden under the sheets are found. It's Erwin, surprised to hear his father's voice. The man walks towards him and, taking him by the shoulders, asks what the hell happened. Erwin, fearful, tells him how they almost killed him with a fork and begins to stammer. His father, furious, orders the others to speak. Who dared to do that to him? A guard responds. The one who attacked your son is Damian of the Haxen family. The man petrifies upon hearing that name. A disgusting Haxen dared to go against my son? The vessels in the room fall to the floor due to the amount of aura released. Furious, the man orders them to bring this Damian and taking him by the feet as if he were a dog. The next day at the Haxen mansion, Agnes, along with her companion, presents herself before Damian's family. Paul welcomes them, although inside he only wants to kill his son for bringing religious fanatics to his house. Agnes explains that they only came to carry out investigative work on the heretic that attacked the family recently. As a show of gratitude for the collaboration, the church offers a monetary reward, which Paul accepts without hesitation. With Damian's parents now calm, Agnes says she needs to speak with him privately to discuss something. The protagonist can't believe it. She said they would see each other again soon, but he didn't expect it to be so soon and in his own home. Removing him from his thoughts, Agnes comments that it's something very important. She would like to know more about Damian to spread the gospel. The protagonist's parents stop mid-stride and turn, surprised, upon hearing that their son caught the attention of such a beautiful believer. In the meantime, the protagonist receives the special cultivation technique that was selected for him. Damian responds that it's very confusing because there are two books. She responds that they are two techniques, the cultivation one and the destructive sword one. It makes no sense to learn one without knowing the other, and she clarifies that it was very tedious to get them since there was refusal from the church. Without letting Damian respond, she continues saying it was possible thanks to her teacher, who also wishes to meet the protagonist after hearing of his feats. Taking him by the hand, she asks again, "Could you reconsider and become a paladin?" Damian removes his hand and adds that she can always look for them and change her mind while she walks away. Damian thinks, "You were right, she really is a fanatic and her obsession is worrying." Hours later, at Agido, the Dark Mage's hideout, Agnes's companions review the place, commenting on how suspicious the situation is. One of them doubts how someone capable of escaping the Holy Church, wielding time, could fall before a boy with so little combat experience and furthermore at a disadvantage against magic. His companions sigh. They have felt the same doubt, but neither can they do much about it. Both believe the protagonist is hiding something, and Agnes interrupts them. She asks them to trust her intuition. Besides, Damian already explained to them how he managed to execute the mage. Then they remember the moment the protagonist said he simply dodged until he could cut off his head with his sword. "But it's impossible," says one of them, still distrustful. To the distrust having felt the same doubt, but he remembers that when he received Agido's head, he went to observe Damian before intervening in his fight. He saw how he defeated dozens of enemies and even deflected the fireball, in other words, a magical spell. His companions can't believe it. "The only ones capable of such a feat are?" "Yes," responds Agnes. "Supposedly those who reach the master level with the sword can even block magic, although it doesn't seem to be his case. Perhaps it was thanks to his enormous potential. That's exactly why the main objective wasn't to come investigate, but to convince him to join the church." Both companions understand and agree. Having someone like him would be a great asset. Elsewhere, a group of 3 knights travels on horseback. The apprentice knight Alpi thanks the Lord for having arrived at their destination, while Levender, also an apprentice, complains about the smell of the countryside and the cows. "And well, I love that smell." Their leader orders them to shut up. It's Gary, an official knight. They are the envoys of the Leon Blumen family, or however the hell it's said. They arrive again at the Haxen mansion. Gary asks about the mission's objective, and Alpi responds that they must capture and drag Damian Haxen as if he were a dog. "What the hell?" Their leader doesn't like it. He believes they should do much more to compensate for the humiliation suffered by the young Master Irwin. An old man walks alongside them, calling Gary's attention. The man doesn't even look at them and passes by until they speak to him. The old man turns, confused, asking who it is. Gary asks him if he is a resident of the Haxen family, and upon his confirmation, the Haxen is decapitated instantly. Gary sheathes his sword, cursing. How dare he not bow before the knights of the Leon Blore family? Alpi and Levender are confused. That Haxen seemed to be blind. How could he have seen them? But Gary doesn't care. With a smile on his face, he says he has an idea. A moment later, while Victor was cleaning the entrance, he hears the knights approaching. They intend to massacre everyone before taking Damian back with the church's followers. He regrets not having been able to investigate properly due to the damage caused by the collapse. What calls the attention of the 3 is Damian using the destructive cultivation technique. Haken Descuidado that open. That cultivation method allows its user to absorb energy from the environment once a high degree of mastery with the technique is reached. How is it possible that in just a couple of hours he has reached that level? Damian sighs after finishing his practice, and upon opening his eyes, finds the small group enthralled with his performance. Confused, he asks them if they finished the investigation into Agido's hideout. Agnes responds that yes, and takes the opportunity to congratulate him. The protagonist doesn't respond immediately but thinks, "I understand why the paladin insisted on the difficulty of getting permission and giving me that technique. Destructive energy was clearly created to compensate for the high consumption of its counterpart, destructive sword, becoming a perfect combination of attack and energy recovery." Returning to himself, he notes that Agnes is observing him, blushing and in silence. To avoid a romantic atmosphere, he wants to return to his house, although immediately he feels a great thirst for blood and asks Miss Agnes to return at her own pace. There's nothing to worry about. Then he runs off at great speed, leaving the believers surprised. The paladin, above all, knows that such speed is only achievable with an extremely precise control of mana. How far will that boy's limits go? She wonders. They go straight to Victor, hitting him directly in the stomach, leaving him on his knees, and begin to beat him for having defied them. Victor refuses to reveal his master's location. Even so, they seek to harm him. Paul hurriedly leaves the mansion and shouts at the knights to stop. They recognize him as the Viscount of Haxen, but Paul holds his servant with concern and questions the knights for having assaulted a civilian in that way. Gary interrupts him, mentioning that compared to the humiliation suffered by his family, beating a fatty is nothing. Viscount Paul Haxen, the great Marquis Leon Bloom, demands the head of your son, Damian Haxen. Paul curses the man. He expected retaliation for Irwin. This is barbaric. Gary is obviously lying, and even if they handed over Damian, they would surely destroy the place. Repressing his pain, Paul clenches his teeth and gathers courage to refuse. I will not hand over my son to some animals. Gary expected that response. Therefore, there's only one thing left to do. He orders Alpi and Levender to raze everything until they find the boy. Paul begs them to stop. There's no need to go that far, but a voice stops him. A boy enveloped in a murderous aura freezes the knights. Gary couldn't even notice him until now. Who the hell is he? But he falls upon feeling pressured. His mere presence terrifies the knights. The protagonist walks alongside his father to see Victor. They really beat him to a pulp, so much that he seems to have lost consciousness. Annoyed, Damian speaks with the knights. You were very lucky that Victor was born with a chubby body and could withstand so much damage. Otherwise, Gary responds that his egocentrism doesn't matter. The trick you used to defeat the young master Irwin won't work against us. The protagonist doesn't understand what he means by trick. I was simply superior to that worm. Gary sends his knights to attack. Levender is about to attack Damian, but he stops him with ease. Seeing in it a perfect opportunity to test his new strength, he turns his hand, completely bending Levender's arm, and with a punch to the chest, sends him flying, cutting off his screams. Alpi, terrified, cannot react and receives a kick that breaks a tooth. Both apprentice knights were defeated with such ease before their leader. Victor slowly opens his eyes. The first thing he sees upon waking is Damian protecting him and asking how he is. In pain, Victor slowly raises his hand and, smiling, gives a thumbs up. Damian can't believe it. He was beaten to a pulp and is still in good spirits. He really is a unique guy. Gary dismounts from his white horse. The protagonist didn't expect the boy to have such skills. Seeing how he defeated 2 apprentice knights, it's understandable that he caused problems for Irwin. Damian responds that it doesn't matter. Whether or not he has the necessary strength, it's still none of their business. That was enough for Gary to discover the secret. All the puzzle pieces fit. He points at the protagonist firmly and says, "You are not the real Damian Haxen." What the hell? No one understands what he's talking about. Where did he get that? Gary, furious, shouts for them to stop deceiving him. It's more than obvious. The young Master Irwin would not lose to a low-ranking noble. The Haxen family surely hired a mercenary to impersonate their son. Damian watches him grip his weapon and thinks he really is stupid. One of the apprentice knights regains consciousness but decides to play dead to avoid further embarrassment. That was good. Paul worries for his son while helping Victor. In contrast, Victor is sure his master will emerge victorious. Gary tightens the grip on his sword and analyzes his opponent. Although he is skilled, there is still an ocean of difference. Gary is only going to make one cut. In the blink of an eye, he draws and attacks the protagonist, but he also manages to block it and mocks the knight. I expected more from someone sent by the Leon Bloomio family, or however the hell that thing is said. Gary doesn't proceed, quickly not understanding what happened. Perhaps it was pure luck. No, he was the one exaggerating many discourtesies, and Damian intercepts each one of them. Gary curses the protagonist, but he is too slow. Damian begins the counterattack, cutting his face or directing the enemy's mode. Gary cannot follow his movements. Gary attacks him, and with the trajectory in the head, arriving and dragging him along the ground. Gary remains on his knees, trembling before the annoyed Damian, who tells him that will be his punishment for hurting Victor. Gary stands up using his sword as support and, releasing his aura, attacks furiously. He uses his ultimate technique, Supreme Lion Speed Sword. Damian prepares to receive the attack. When the swords clash, Gary's shatters and the protagonist pierces the knight's shoulder, cutting off his arm completely. Gary falls defeated on his back. Gary is surprised by his son while Victor celebrates his revenge. Damian turns his head upon hearing the knight's screams, who tries to stop the bleeding with his aura. The protagonist points his sword at him. Gary gives up. He doesn't know the boy's true identity but begs for his forgiveness. "I don't know where you got the idea that I'm an imposter, you idiot," responds Damian. "Besides, it's too late to ask for forgiveness. Coming from my family and beating a servant, there's no point in asking me for clemency." The knight suggests leaving things at that. "I really am sorry," and Damian interrupts him. "I remind you that I am not the one you should ask for forgiveness." Gary looks with fear at those approaching him, but he still has matters to resolve with Victor and Paul. After receiving a beating, the three knights of the Leon Blum family remain kneeling, but Victor is still not satisfied. He wants to give them a few more hits to make sure, although they could die. Perhaps it would be better to cut off another limb. Paul stops them. "That will be enough." Gary apologizes again for the enormous lack of respect, but to Paul, his tears are worthless. If it weren't because his son has enough power, the knights would have destroyed everything in their path to take Damian before the Marquis. Gary smashes his head on the ground, repeatedly asking for forgiveness. Paul observes him doubting and decides not to say anything. Then he turns to look at his son. Damian understands it will be his decision. If he executes them here and now, it will end in war against the Leon Blum. But if he lets them go, they will return for revenge. He also couldn't defeat them all while protecting his family. Someone calls the protagonist by his name. It's Agnes asking what would have happened. Then Damian gets an idea. She can also be useful in this situation. Several minutes later, Agnes understands the situation and finds an easy way to help the Haxen. Thanks to her intervention with Agito, the Dark Mage, technically she has the right to be an ally of the Holy Church. The protagonist hadn't thought of that. The Paladin is right. Paul and Victor don't know if that's good or bad, but it seems to be the only option for now. Damian holds Agnes's hand, begging as if asking for marriage. She accepts exactly what the protagonist was looking for. Paul and Victor can't believe it. The damn guy seduced her with his appearance. Now Damian addresses Gary and his men. "Did you hear? You must inform the Marquis that the Haxen family is under the protection of the church. If you understand that, you will not bother my family with force again." The knights of Leon Blum retreat at full speed, grateful that their lives were spared. Victor tells him that finally they can catch a breath, but Paul responds that no, there is still a need to call a family meeting and plan the next steps well. Moments later, all the Haxen families gather in the dining room along with Agnes. Paul begins speaking about the dispute with the Leon Blum. Abel raises his hand, confused, since they had just received the church's protection. That should mean it's a past problem. His father says they cannot wait for the church to take care of everything, as they normally involve themselves too much in conflict between nobles. Besides, the Leon Blum have another way of harming the family apart from military power, of course. A more realistic option to cover their backs is to seek the protection of another noble of higher rank. Agnes interrupts upon hearing that, remembering another option. The valuable Lord Damian could become a holy paladin of the Holy Church. The protagonist interrupts the program, noting that she was talking about that matter in front of his family, and treated to forms, refuses again, leaving her frustrated. Abel shouts and hits the table like a madman, surprising everyone, and asks an important question. Why not pressure Damian? With all the disaster he caused, it would be fair for him to become a paladin to protect the family. While Agnes celebrates, Abel continues saying there was no time to doubt. Paul silences him with a murderous look. "We have visitors and you hit the table like a spoiled brat." Although annoyed, he has no choice but to obey his father. Paul half agrees. Although Damian caused the conflict, he did it to protect his sister Lois from the clutches of a pervert, and he, being the man of the house, was going to give up at that moment. Standing up, he calls Damian by his name. This one lowers his gaze, but Paul takes him by the hand and congratulates him for having defended his family's honor and having justly beaten the Leon Blum. Damian responds that there was no need to thank him. It was something he had to do. Paul says that's fine, but from now on he will take care of everything and fulfill his role as a father. Someone interrupts the meeting. The head butler comes to notify an urgent matter. Paul asks to know what it's about, and well, the young Master Damian requested an enormous loan, leaving the family's wheat fields as collateral, and the payment deadline has expired. Damian turns, cursing. He returned in time but forgot he had done many things. Paul furiously grabs him, calling him a damn wretch. He swears he's going to kill him. After a moment, a man greets the protagonist, saying it's been a long time since they've seen each other. This is Alandi Mitch, manager of the branch. This is the Akash. Damian barely recognizes him, but without a doubt that's the one who filled his head with sweet words to sign a contract for the family's lands. Having passed so much time, he doesn't remember how much money he owes, so he asks. Alandi's answer leaves him breathless. He requested a loan of 200 gold coins, and added to the interest, it comes to a total of 300 gold coins. Damian can't believe it. What the hell was his past self thinking? At this rate, his family is going to end up on the street begging. Alandi reminds him that the lands are the collateral, and no matter how noble they are, they must comply with the contract since, unfortunately, the Duke himself ordered to collect all debts regardless of the person's status. Damian sweats cold when Alandi asks to receive the payment. Noticing the protagonist's discomfort, Alandi asks if he perhaps didn't manage to gather the money. Damian responds with the truth. "I didn't prepare the payment." Alandi is surprised but immediately smiles, showing his true face, and throws himself on the sofa as if it were his house, putting his feet on the table. He sits and mocks the protagonist. First, he tells him he shouldn't have requested a loan if he knew he couldn't pay it, and then he snaps his fingers, sending his thugs to surround Damian. This is the favorite part of the job, he thinks. When a disgusting noble is incapable of paying, they always make them crawl like a dog. What face will Damian Haxen make in this situation? Alandi gets excited just imagining it. Meanwhile, Paul tries to relax by pacing the room. His wife and daughter ask him to trust their son, but no, Paul can't stand it. The family's future is at stake. Merylda reminds him how Damian stopped being problematic, and Lois agrees. Her brother had already solved several things. But that was due to Damian's strength. He does not possess diplomatic skills. Upon joining, Damian smashes one of the thugs against the floor. Alandi shits himself from fear. He didn't expect that reaction, but Damian is worried about having destroyed the recently repaired floor. Upon seeing another thug, he jumps on him. He moves his arms like a snake and grabs him by the neck. The protagonist comments on something interesting. Having attacked in his own house, technically what he did counts as self-defense. Alandi shouts, worried, while his body falls to the ground in a matter of seconds. Damian walks towards him, asking him to calm down so they can chat. "Currently, I do not have the means to pay the debt, so there will be no money." Scared, Alandi responds that there's no problem. Damian grabs him by the shoulder, suggesting paying in another way. The guy accepts without hesitation. He doesn't want to imagine what would happen if he refuses. The next day, Abel talks with his father about the desperation he feels. It's unbearable that Damian defeats the system with brute force. This Abel is a fucking hater. Paul asks him to stop behaving like that. He should support his brother, although he isn't very convinced of the plan either and accepts it reluctantly. But they must trust him. Agnes approaches to say goodbye to the protagonist, and he thanks her again for all the help offered. She responds, "Of course. The Haxen also did something important for the church, and I hope Damian's journey is blessed by the Lord so that he returns willing to join." Damian interrupts her. He already knows what she was going to say and doesn't plan to change his mind. After saying goodbye to everyone, he verifies with his servants if the luggage has been loaded and proceeds to board the carriage. He is surprised by its comfort. Alandi accompanies them and is pleased that the transportation is to his liking. Damian likes the debt collector's change in attitude. Therefore, they will stop to eat some lobsters along the way, and he gives the signal to the driver. The journey begins. The protagonist's next destination is clear, the house of Duke Goldpixie. After a very long journey, the protagonist finally arrives at the Goldpixie estate. It is definitely a place worthy of the supposedly richest family in the kingdom. Damian thanks Alandi for his services, and especially for organizing the talk with the Duke. In contrast, Alandi only wishes for the business to go badly to take revenge on the protagonist for having humiliated him. So he lies, wishing him good luck. Damian prepares to cross the entrance while Alandi, behind him, gives him the middle finger. Inside the mansion, he finds himself before the Duke of the Apple Kingdom, Adam Goldpixie, who asks the reason for his visit. The protagonist responds that, to begin, it's an honor to be in his presence. But Adam asks him to skip the formalities. He has other things to do. Then Damian explains that he requested a loan, leaving his family's lands as collateral, and didn't manage to gather the money, so he came to ask if he can pay in another way. Adam hesitates. And Damian volunteers to defeat the Leon Blum. Both the Duke and his guard and the knights are surprised to hear it. Adam laughs and understands that the rumor has already spread. And Jael, his guard, agrees. Everyone in the Apple Kingdom knows this rumor. Recently, on the border between the two great families, a large gold mine was discovered. By themselves, they never got along, and this discovery caused the families to plan a duel between low-class knights for control of the mine. Damian already knows the result, an overwhelming victory for the Leon Blum. After that, they expanded their power using their new fortune and ruined the Goldpixie influence. Or Goldpixie, whatever. This is a golden opportunity for Damian. He could get rid of the Leon Blum and pay his debts at the same time. The Duke likes the protagonist's ambition and takes the opportunity to ask him about the veracity of the rumors about Erwin and the Dark Mage. Adam is impressed by how far the rumors have reached, and he responds that indeed he did those things. "You are a very tempting scoundrel," says Adam. "I was just looking for a knight to represent me in a duel." Damian responds that in that case there's no need to look further. He is the best candidate, he's right before his eyes. The Duke doubts. Could he really defeat the eldest son of the Leon Blum? Confident, the protagonist says yes. That trash might be somewhat skilled, but nothing out of this world. One of the Duke's knights interrupts the chat, suggesting that Damian must be exaggerating and that Miss Chelsea will return with a better candidate. Every time she has looked for knights, she has never disappointed. The duel, Adam thinks about it. It's a valid point of view, and he agrees with Erkson Dodak. Anyway, Damian couldn't believe that a damn ugly guy wanted to ruin his argument. The Duke asks him if he has any objection. Clearly, they are analyzing his reaction, so Damian responds loudly and clearly. "You are all mistaken. I am the best option no matter who Chelsea brings. In fact, so that you trust in my strength, I am willing to block Erkson Dodak's ultimate attack." Erkson Dodak is irritated by the suggestion. The protagonist mocks him, asking him not to worry. If he's afraid, he doesn't have to do it. Erkson Dodak becomes furious, and he is called Erkson Dodak because his name is super weird. They are really underestimating him. Immediately, he asks the Duke for permission to teach the protagonist a lesson. Adam tries to think about it. He accepts the idea. A moment later, he is already in the arena, ready to begin. Victor shouts, confused about what's happening. He thought they were only going to talk, not fight. Besides, his master's opponent seems dangerous. Erkson Dodak receives permission to begin. He plants his spear in the ground, giving Damian the opportunity to surrender. Protagonist yawns from boredom, mocking the knight. Erkson Dodak begins by releasing his aura. He will give his best so that Damian cannot block his ultimate attack. The knight shouts. He raises the spear bathed in aura and jumps with all his strength. Damian raises the sword to cover himself, and Erkson Dodak deflects the attack at the last moment towards the protagonist's chest. But no, Damian's sword breaks in half. The Duke worries, while Victor shouts at Dodak because his master has apparently died. But we are going to leave it here because, as I told you, this is a trailer of an hour and something that I brought for you to enjoy.